So, so you have 21? Okay.
Thank you.
Here, I'm gonna give you two, just so you can have. Check, check, check. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So we're just gonna have one on this
Right
table?
here, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, 21. So put the stand up right there.
So another question for you.
Sure.
You're live streaming it?
Yes.
What is it to? Or
It's
how
to
can I find it?
it's to the Dallas Herring Lecture.
That's what I want. Oh, yeah, beautiful.
Let me set that up. Wave file.
How do you want it set up?
Just like that, and just have it pointed back to you.
there. Sam.
morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
With you a little bit.
Good morning. Good morning. Is that one? I'm looking for that. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Is that it? Okay, now that we know that the mics are working, good morning, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to the 2025 Dallas Herring Lecture. My name is AJ Jager, and I'm the Executive Director of the Belk Center for Community College Leadership and Research and the W. Dallas Herring Professor of Community College Education at NC State University. Each year, this lecture brings together community college leaders from across the state and the nation to reflect on where we've been and where we are in the moment, as well as where we are going. This group of educators, leaders, and partners is like a family reunion for me. Since 2000, and by the way, I like family reunions. Since 2015, yes, we are now on year 11 of the Dallas Herring Lecture. We've come together to engage in critical conversations about the most urgent and emerging topics facing community colleges, from teaching and learning and transfer, to economic mobility, to leading through crisis. Each year, we leave not only with new ideas, but a renewed energy to act. The Dallas Herring Lecture has always been about possibility. What's next for colleges, and more importantly, for our students? This year's topic calls on us once again to dig deeper, to ask how we can assure our colleges don't just open their doors, but truly serve as engines of economic mobility and opportunity for all. I'd like to extend a warm welcome to everyone joining me here right in person in Raleigh, as well as our online viewers. We have viewers from 27 states across the country and several out of the country. Our largest group of online viewers, though, is right here, our closest neighbor, Wake Technical Community College, so shout outs to our Wake Tech friends. I also want to recognize our North Carolina community colleges, all of them, all 58, for each one of them has either someone in the audience or someone online viewing today. And more than 12 colleges are hosting lecture watch parties all across the state. In fact, this year, we have the ability to see some of those watch parties at colleges. So, let's say hello to the audience or someone online. Our friends at Durham Technical Community College. We also have friends at Guilford Technical Community College. Let's say hello to them. We're going to wait for them. Okay, we're moving right on to the College of the Albemarle. Back to Durham Tech. We love you, Durham Tech. Well, we know they're out there, we know they're watching, and we are grateful. We are so excited about our online viewers as well. So whether you're watching together on your campus or you're tuning in individually, our collective presence reminds us that our work matters as we seek to make a difference for each and every student. As we gather each year for the Dallas Herring Lecture, we do so in a spirit of reflection, not just on where we are going, but where we've come from. By honoring the long arc of history that guides us, we recognize the essential nature of education. As a proud land-grant institution for the people of North Carolina, NC State's history, though holding different implications for different people, is fundamentally rooted in one central promise: making higher education accessible for all. This enduring land-grant mission drives us to support all 100 counties in North Carolina, ensuring knowledge and education remain within reach for everyone who lives there. The guiding principle behind Dallas Herring's work was both ambitious and simple: an open door to meaningful educational opportunities for North Carolinians. For 25 years on the State Board of Education, Herring championed access and pathways for everyday people, recognizing what so few in his day understood: that expanding educational opportunity strengthens communities, the economy, and the workforce. He envisioned a higher education system where residents could pursue their passions, build on their strengths, and uplift their communities, with programs and supports responsive to the changing needs of students in both rural and urban settings. As Herring wrote, I quote, "We shall provide opportunity for everyone according to everyone's need and potential." Herring believed that education should not meet people, should meet people where they are and carry them as far as they can go. He understood that opportunity at its best is personal and transformative, that it's not just about open doors if we don't walk beside people as they move through those doors. And as he reminded us, and I quote, "The goal of the community college system must be comprehensive as the needs of our students are. And if this is not understood, then it is our duty to make it clear so that it will be understood. We must support policies which open all of the doors to all of the people who walk through them." It is that same commitment and meaningful transformative opportunity that guides the work of the Dallas Herring Lecturer in 2025, Dr. Jason Wood. Building on Herring's belief that education must open doors, it must also accompany learners through them. Dr. Wood challenges us to ask a critical question: are our students truly better off because they came to us? At Southwest Wisconsin Technical College, he lived this principle every day, embracing a simple yet powerful ethic: we don't graduate people into poverty. This is more than a motto, it's a call to action, a reminder that access must lead to advancement and completion and opportunity. It is a charge for each and everyone in this audience, watching us and across the country. From programs and curricula to supports and workforce partnerships, all with the goal of transforming lives. Dr. Wood's work shows that when we measure success by the futures strengthened and the communities uplifted, we fulfill the promise Herring set for us decades ago. It is in that same spirit of commitment to students, innovation, and collaboration that I turn to our very own leadership at NC State, someone who's championed the critical role of community colleges in our state's future, advanced partnerships across higher education, and is our Executive Vice Chancellor and Provost, Warwick Arden. He has continuously supported strategic initiatives focused on transfer student success, and they include North Carolina State's Community College Collaboration Program, also known as C3, which provides an affordable pathway to NC State for 19 partner community colleges, and recently announced our Wolfpack Connect, which has guaranteed admission to 100 eligible NC State majors and concentrations as Associate in Arts and Associate in Science degrees at any North Carolina community college. Over the years, Provost Arden has been a valued partner and advocated for the Belk Center's mission, helping to ensure NC State continues to uplift and learn from extraordinary work happening across our state at our community colleges. In 2026, after more than 16 years of exemplary service as NC State's Chief Academic Officer, he will step down from his role and return to the faculty in the College of Veterinary Medicine. I'm so grateful for your leadership and advocacy and the incredible impact you've made on me and NC State. Please join me in extending a warm welcome to Dr. Warwick Arden.
Thank you, Dr. Jager. I really appreciate those warm words. Good morning, everyone. It is great to see you here this morning. What an awesome day. We are celebrating this year's Dallas Herring Lecture. And here at NC State, we often talk about the power of education to transform lives. But it's in gatherings like this that we really see what that transformation looks like. The partnerships between universities, community colleges, organizations across North Carolina are more than collaborations. They're commitments to people, to opportunity, and to the idea that talent exists in every corner of our state. That belief is at the heart of our land-grant mission and also at the heart of the work of the Belk Center. Each year, the Dallas Herring Lecture stands as a reminder to all of us of what's possible when we stay focused on student success. This year's speaker, Dr. Jason Wood, exemplifies that kind of visionary leadership. Most recently, he served as president of Southwest Wisconsin Technical College, where he led with a clear purpose and a deep commitment to student success, as Dr. Jager said, guided by the belief that we do not graduate people into poverty. Over the course of his career, Dr. Wood has led in both small rural colleges, larger urban institutions, bring a deep understanding of how context shapes opportunity. At Southwest Tech, his leadership helped the college become a national model for how rural colleges can achieve extraordinary results. In April 2025, the college was awarded the Aspen Prize for Community College Excellence, one of the highest honors in the higher education. Earlier this year, Dr. Wood began a new role as Vice President of Salt Lake Technical College within Salt Lake Community College, where he continues to design college experiences that lead to success for all learners. Dr. Wood's message invites us to examine the systems we lead, to design them intentionally, measure impact thoughtfully, and ensure that students remain at the center of everything we do. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Jason Wood.
Oh, I didn't want to look up. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge that there are at least 2 or 3 dozen people from Southwest Tech who could deservedly give this speech today. What colleges accomplish does not happen because of one person. And not only am I nervous to be standing here, but I'm grateful for those 2 or 3 dozen key people who were leaders across the entire college and in our communities. I appreciate being here in North Carolina. My 4th oldest daughter, Amy, is with me today. Amy is still trying to choose which college she wants to go to. So if any of you are recruiting, Catherine, my eternal best friend, and I have 6 daughters. A lot of and she's not able to, my wife, Catherine, is not able to listen today because she's substitute teaching. But a lot of what I bring to work is a desire to provide for our students what I get to provide for my own daughters in terms of preparing them to be successful in life. Thank you to North Carolina for the wonderful weather. We flew in on Saturday and have enjoyed several of the nature preserves where I would rather be right now. So as I get started, I will be moving from point to point, and there may be a whole lot of bull in between. Go back to that slide for now. It's an honor to join you today for the 2025 Dallas Herring Lecture. This gathering invites community colleges from across the nation to reflect deeply on our purpose, our mission, and the power of our community colleges. Let's begin by thanking the Belk Center for Community College Leadership and Research, North Carolina State's College of Education, and all those who make this annual event such a meaningful opportunity for reflection, innovative leadership, and an opportunity to renew our commitment to the students we serve. Thank you, AJ, for this invitation. I have a simple gift, a token of my appreciation. My dad is a woodworker and has made 4 coasters that I would like to gift you so you can remember, hopefully positively, this experience. This event honors W. Dallas Herring, whose founding vision that we must take people where they are and carry them as far as they can go remains our compass. Whether here in North Carolina, Wisconsin, Utah, or across the country, we strive to expand educational opportunities, raise completion and improve postgraduate outcomes as drivers of economic growth, stronger communities, and innovative solutions to our greatest challenges. Since 2015, the Dallas Herring Lecture has served as a stage for courageous leadership and bold vision. I am honored to follow in the paths of Dr. Karen Stout, who called us to design student-ready institutions that prioritize teaching and learning. Dr. Mike Flores, who affirmed that working collectively is essential to advancing economic mobility. Dr. Felicia Williams, who dared us to be extraordinary and to lead with hope and opportunity. And Dr. Russell Lowry Hart, who reminded us of the transformative power of loving our students to success. Most of my comments today are centered on what I've learned from Josh Weiner of the Aspen Institute and Sandy Shugart, who is a personal hero of mine. Each of these speakers challenged us to act with purpose and compassion, and I'll strive to contribute to that ongoing conversation. When I served at Southwest Wisconsin Technical College, we built everything around one unshakable belief. We don't graduate people into poverty. Every single student is looking for something better, and we can help them achieve that through better career opportunities. We don't graduate people into poverty is more than a slogan. It remains a very personal and moral commitment. If students leave with a credential but no path to a family-sustaining wage, we have failed to fulfill the promise of higher education. That's not just a value, it's a challenge, an invitation. It forces us to ask, are our students truly better off because they came to us? Are we designing every part of the college experience, not just for enrollment and completion, but for economic mobility? This morning, I want to share what that mindset meant for our students, our staff, faculty, and community. Because opportunity without outcomes is an unfulfilled promise, and the real question isn't whether innovation is possible, it's whether we're willing to do it for the people who need it the most. Community colleges were built to be engines of opportunity, but Josh Weiner has taught us that opportunity without outcomes is an unfulfilled promise. That's why at Southwest Tech, we improved everything. Yes, we had a disastrous accreditation visit in 2016 that imposed embarrassing sanctions and required us to start from scratch. But it provided an opportunity to do real work, not just for compliance's sake, but to create real growth. We rebuilt how we design programs, how we support students as individual people, how we engage employers, and how we assess learning. And we did it with one question always in front of us. Will this decision help all students, especially the ones who need it the most? Today I want to share what we did and how we did it at a small rural college in a way that you can feel, believe, and know that you can create similar change for your students at your college. We must refuse to accept poverty as a postgraduate reality for many students and instead fervently adopt a mindset that our students are better off when they all complete high-value credentials. Before we talk about outcomes, let's make this personal. Picture a student who never made it to graduation. Maybe you've known someone like a single mom of 3 young children, juggling 2 jobs with 1 broken down car, who can't find childcare, let alone afford it. Or a first-generation student overwhelmed by forms and acronyms, essentially told to figure it out with a folder of information to read or a mandatory orientation focused on compliance. Or what about the young man aging out of foster care, who never experienced a real sense of belonging? Whether a student in Wisconsin, Utah, or right here in North Carolina, how many people like that do you know? Not statistically, but personally. How many of those students have been in your home in the last month? These students didn't fail college. I failed to adapt to them. Jocko Willink and Leif Babin, authors of Extreme Ownership, said leaders must own everything in their world. There is no one else to blame. Definitely extreme, but a mindset that is essential to create a culture that will learn to care enough to make a difference. It helps move the needle from simply understanding those who struggle through statistical analysis to creating urgency and using our influence to achieve meaningful results. Now imagine what could happen if we designed our systems to meet all students, especially the ones who need the most help, as our highest priority, maybe our only priority. My first invitation today is to get to know the people least likely to succeed at your college and in your community. Eat a meal with them. Learn their stories. Visit their communities. Invite them to your home. Let their experience reshape how you design systems to serve them better. Innovation means rethinking what we teach, how we teach it, and why it matters in the labor market our students are entering. Innovation means aligning learning outcomes with high-demand skills, embedding industry credentials into academic pathways, and actively partnering with employers to ensure students are graduating with the ability to apply knowledge on the job. But above all, it means being bold enough to admit when what worked yesterday won't work tomorrow, and caring enough to change it for the students. The agriculture programs at Southwest Tech were facing challenges. Our program enrollment was near an all-time low, and several programs were averaging wages hovering around $12 to $14 an hour. In response, we took a deep dive into the issues by visiting numerous ag employers, speaking directly with our alumni, and touring job sites to see firsthand what our graduates were actually doing. To be clear, this is work I prioritized myself. Our academic deans, faculty, and staff also came along in order to create mutual understanding for the rationale behind why changes were needed in the classroom, frontline advising, the policies, our new program development, and capital purchases. It makes a difference that I, as the college president, went on a majority of the tours, personally interviewed numerous employers, and met individually with many alumni, and also spoke to many students who never finished our programs. Our comprehensive process led to a series of bold innovations. We streamlined our offerings by closing half a dozen outdated credentials that no longer aligned with workforce needs. We reinvested the savings along with new grant funds and launched a new precision agriculture program designed to be more high-tech, more workforce aligned, and more transfer friendly. Faculty placed a new emphasis on short-term training tied to industry-recognized credentials like commercial driver's license, drone certification, pesticide application. Long story short, well, before the long story gets short, our employers agreed to almost double entry-level wages when they came out with those credentials. Any college can do this type of innovation in any program. First, prioritize the industry. Second, focus on innovations that will increase enrollment and completion rates and postgraduate access to high-wage jobs, all with an emphasis on the students who need it the most. Nope, don't want to go to that one again. One of the ways I stay connected to what's happening in our classrooms is by asking students a simple question. What's something you've learned from one of your instructors? I don't ask as a formality. I ask because I genuinely want to know. When students teach me what they've learned, I get an authentic, unfiltered glimpse into what's sticking, what's resonating, and why it's meaningful to students. Students have started providing me with a tangible souvenir of these exchanges. The hood of a car I painted after they taught me how, autographed by each of the students, now on display in my office. The mold of a student's teeth. It's one thing to ask a student to teach you to do something. It's another when she gets done and says, "Now it's your turn." Or there was the time a physical therapy student, I was the patient for the physical therapy student. When she turned on the electrostimulation machine, it was too high. I'm not going to show that video today. Invitation number 2 is to ask students to teach you something they learned from their instructors. Proudly brag about what you learned from the students. Thank the instructor in a way that is meaningful to them for their essential role in the process. Many of the benefits of this activity are self-evident. One of the unintended benefits that revealed itself to me over time was the power to open doors and focus partnerships on student learning. One student met with me to discuss some difficulties he was experiencing. We worked through options he could pursue, and his curiosity caused him to inquire about the various items in my office. Just before the end of the semester, he invited me to his computer numerical control class, CNC. He surprised me with a chess set as a gift, a token of his appreciation for the solution he was able to find to his circumstances. The chess set represented his skills and abilities that would lead to a very well-paying job. It also opened a door for me several years later. During a virtual job interview, a faculty member asked me how I connect with students as an administrator. Since he was a CNC instructor, I had a powerful story to share. When I showed up on campus for the in-person interview, the instructor let me know he was inspired by my interview and gifted me a chess piece. Later, when my daughter, Amy, toured his campus, similarly, the two of them made a chess piece for her to keep. And he now does this for all of his students. When we focus on putting high-quality student learning and deeply caring about students as individual people, we will achieve excellence. If you want the ultimate lead-by-example assignment, have courageous conversations about being an employer of preference by raising college employee salaries so there are no low-wage employees on campus. It's not easy, but we did it. Our lowest paid employees used to make in the mid-$20,000 range. There is now not a single employee at Southwest Tech who makes less than $40,000. There's also a very generous benefits package. Guess what happened? Our highest turnover positions, evening custodians, are now among our most loyal employees. Search pools are more dynamic. Our graduates even strive to get a job with us when they complete their degrees. Working through this process requires that you prioritize everything you spend based on the impact on students, with a willingness to invest in what makes the biggest difference: our people. I know we believe our faculty and staff make the biggest difference for students. During COVID, Margie Billings, who you see as a retired custodian, wrote every single one of our employees handwritten notes of encouragement on homemade cards with pictures she printed of flowers in her own garden. AJ, I'm almost at time. You want me to keep? Okay. If your program array is heavy on low-wage industries, develop new programs focused on higher wages. North Carolina community colleges adapt easily to the local economy to provide needed services to fuel the economic engine. One example of this is Johnston Community College and their workforce development and biotechnology sector. One of the largest employment sectors in Johnson County is biotechnology. Johnston Community College now provides many levels of certification to allow individuals to enter these high-paying jobs without leaving their community. And I have a whole list of innovative things happening across the state of North Carolina. And I will probably follow up and connect with several of you to take what I can back to Utah with me. One of the most influential practices that we implemented as part of winning the Aspen Prize last spring was our student success plans. First, we help students figure out their career direction. Using certified career counseling, we help people understand their strengths and the jobs that exist in our region before they complete an application. Second, we map out the courses they'll need along with the support services that will help them personally complete a program. And third, we build an individual financial plan for every single student before they take a class so that they know how they can pay for college and life. And almost always we find that there's a gap. So we restructured our scholarship process not to be based on once a year applying through an essay, but our scholarships now go to fund the gaps of students when they start. It's not a handout, it's a plan the students help create, and one we walk through together with them step by step. Once students start attending classes, the instruction must lead to student learning. High-quality work-based learning isn't something to bolt on at the end of a program. It should be integrated throughout the entire journey. Our faculty and staff, through the Academic Council, created a 4-stage model for work-based learning. so that every single one of our programs has work-based learning embedded into it from the beginning. This model, work-based learning, also supports students who plan to transfer to a bachelor's degree program. When transfer pathways are built with intentional employer input, students don't just accumulate credits, they build competencies. A student who completes an associate's degree with embedded work experience enters their next institution with academic preparation and a clarity of purpose, professional direction, and a story to tell. These students arrive on a university campus with experience, confidence, and momentum. Graduation is not the finish line. It's just a handoff. If we truly care about student success, we can't afford to just celebrate the walk across the stage and then look away. After students graduate, we must obsessively collect their feedback, the feedback of their employers, and the feedback from our university partners. That's how we know the gaps in a student's experience. If we say we care about students' lives after graduation, then we have to take action. We cannot graduate students into poverty. When we courageously improve the student experience, we lift people out of poverty, benefiting generations. Well, that's a picture of me. I should note, I work a shift with our custodians at least once a year. They can assign me any job they want on campus, and then afterwards we have dinner. I learn more about our college over a dinner with the custodians, having worked in their responsibilities, than just about anything else I do. We were part of the Unlocking Opportunities cohort, where we strive to put students on paths to high-value careers. Before we started in 2023, you can see our distribution of students on high-wage pathways. In 1 year, every single demographic improved. It doesn't matter whether it's low income, male, female, or race. We had more students on high-wage pathways in 1 year. I would encourage you to look at the Aspen Playbook for Unlocking Opportunities and take a deep dive into the assessment of where your students are enrolling and where they're completing, and innovate accordingly. These statistics are part of why I do the work. But I'd like to close with my personal why. Her name is Kendra. She just turned 4. I share this story with permission. Her mom, Kat, left in the middle of the night from a horrible situation that no person should have to go through, and found herself in the homeless shelter in our community 4.5 years ago during COVID. We became friends with her. She was over at our house almost every single day so that she didn't have to spend time at the homeless shelter. From day one, I wanted to recruit her as a student, but it wasn't appropriate to even talk about that yet. So we found her a home where her baby was able to come home from the hospital. She learned to drive with my daughter, Amy. Helped her get a car. We're in our home when we lived in Wisconsin regularly. My network became her network. And she's now set to graduate this spring, and we're recruiting her to Utah to complete her bachelor's degree. The work we do matters statistically, but more importantly, When we put the students who need the most help first, we impact generations. My why is Kendra, so that she goes to college as a second-generation student. Thank you for inviting me here today. If I can be of help to you and your work, please let me know. I would be happy to do so. Thank you.
Wow, that was inspiring. Thank you so much, Dr. Wood, for such a student-centered presentation for us today. I think it's still good morning. I'm Paula Stein, Dean of the College of Education, and it is really an honor to be here for another Dallas Herring gathering during American Education Week. So thank you so much for all of you who are here, for all of our colleagues in the watching parties. Dr. Wood, your call to design college experiences that ensure we never graduate anyone into poverty challenges us all of us, to think differently about how we center students in everything we do and to lead with both courage and compassion. The examples you shared, like a single mother working 2 jobs, the first-generation student told to figure it out, or the students whose language wasn't English, remind us that behind every data point is a person with potential. You invited us to picture those students and imagine what might happen if we designed our system to meet their needs. Some of us heard this morning from our own Chancellor Howell, students, students, students. Dr. Wood, you reminded us that graduation is not the finish line, it's just the handoff. That true student success requires that we look far beyond commencement, listening and learning from our graduates, employers, and partners to understand what we did well, where we fell short, and how we continue to improve. This work resonates deeply with NC State's College of Education and the vision we share with the Belk Center to advance the greater good for all learners. That is why we are here. Together, we continue to strengthen partnerships with community colleges, expand opportunities, and advance success for learners across North Carolina and beyond. So it's now my honor to introduce today's respondent, Sharon Decker, former North Carolina Secretary of Commerce and current Senior Advisor for Long-Term Recovery for the Governor's Recovery Office in Western North Carolina. I really had to read the whole title, so thank you, Sharon, for being here. Throughout her remarkable career, from business to government to faith and community work, Sharon has embodied the very themes Dr. Wood has challenged us to embrace: designing systems that serve people, nurturing talent in every community, and building bridges beyond education and connecting education to communities. Sharon began her career at Duke Energy, where she became the company's first female and youngest vice president, leading efforts that redefined how the organization served its customers and communities. She then went on to become president of Tryon International, leading the development of one of North Carolina's premier sports, tourism, and entertainment destination. During her tenure as State Secretary of Commerce, she led the creation of the Economic Development Partnership of North Carolina, strengthening collaborations between businesses and government to drive economic growth. Today, Sharon is on leave as president of Tryon International while she serves as senior advisor in Western North Carolina. She's leading efforts to rebuild and revitalize Western North Carolina following the devastation of Hurricane Helene. Through her nonprofit, Tapestry Collaborative, Sharon continues her lifelong commitment to community and economic development, helping connect local leaders and for-profit, nonprofit, public organizations in the shared work of restoring Western North Carolina, both the economy and its spirit. Following her response, Sharon will be joined by Dr. Jason Wood and A.J. Jager, and I'm sure we'll have time to hear some more from them as they moderate a conversation to further explore today's themes. How can we design educational experience around student success? How do we partner across sectors to create sustainable pathways to prosperity? So thank you, Sharon, and so please help me in welcoming Sharon Decker.
It's so nice to be with you today. I am honored to have the opportunity to be here. I'm not sure what qualifies me to respond to Dr. Wood. My sister, who is a lifelong educator, was a teacher in North Carolina, an assistant principal, served in South Carolina as an elementary school principal, and then in a number of education districts in the state as associate superintendent around curriculum, and then retired as associate commissioner of schools in the state of Kentucky. Thinks that I have finally arrived by being asked to speak today in response to you, Dr. Wood, and before a group of educators. She says there may be hope yet, that I will do something with my life. What an honor it is to be with you. I would say that my only other qualification for being here, other than being the sister of an educator, is that I met my husband in the parking lot of Cleveland Tech, and now Cleveland Community College. He, at the time, shows how old I am, was teaching math to folks who had returned home from Vietnam on the GI Bill. And one of the smartest decisions I made was to marry a community college instructor. And I'm the daughter of a Southern Baptist pastor who taught for fun, he would say, at Gaston College for most of my growing up years. And I still run into people who will say, you know, I remember Dr. Allred so well. His classes were always so much fun in Old and New Testament and in business communications. But what they most often tell me is, he just piqued my interest to learn more. And isn't that what is maybe the best sign of a skilled and capable educator? My life as a business executive has only deepened my love for our community college system. As a young 16-year-old, I took my first class at a community college to learn sign language so that I could speak with members of our church. And then later in my life, I was fortunate to serve on the board of the community colleges here in North Carolina. So that was many years ago, and our board chair is here today, and I'm so thankful for the work they are doing. I just have so much respect for what you do. As a business leader, I personally had the opportunity to benefit from training in our community colleges in the places where I was looking for employees. And as our state Secretary of Commerce, I know the value of what you offer as absolute incentive to business to come to this great state. I can tell you that things like Toyota and Honda and new businesses that we're welcoming into Western North Carolina are greatly encouraged by your workforce development programs and by your willingness to be partners, and we'll talk some more about that. But without our community colleges, the great success we're experiencing in our state to be identified as the #1 state for business simply would not happen. And I believe that with all of my heart. So I'm honored today to be asked by the Belk Center to come. Thank you so much. Provost, Dean, thank you for the honor to be on your campus. I wore red as I was instructed to do. And I learned that this is I love you. I have to do it like this, right? To properly be a Wolfpack member. Dr. Wood, thank you for your challenge to us today, but thank you especially for your heart, for your students and the communities where you serve. If we leave with nothing else today, may we be challenged by that heart, for that ought to be our motivation. So thank you so much. I could respond to many things that the doctor shared today, and it was hard when sent the information to pick exactly where I would focus. I point to a number of things that he said I simply want to underscore. We don't graduate people into poverty. Amen to that. We should be asking ourselves, what difference does it make that the student came through our programs? Has the experience made any difference at all? Opportunity without outcomes is unfulfilled promise. Get to know the students with the greatest challenges to success, those least likely to succeed. Have a student success plan for each student before they start classes, so they know what the roadmap might possibly look like, including a financial package and a path for how they get through this and the next steps beyond it. Collect data, and I'm going to say data, know the facts on completed plans, program completion, placement, and don't let graduation be the finish line. Continue to follow them. Connect and collect the data on their progress beyond the experience in your program. Know where they are and how they're doing. There's so much that I could share on every single point, but I'm going to leave it at emphasizing those points again. And I want to focus on one line in his comments today. Any college can innovate with courage, humility, and urgency. I'm pretty sure that every community college president in this room and listening from around the country, any leader in our community colleges, would agree that we're in challenging times, wouldn't you? Our budgets are getting smaller, while the demands are getting greater. Many young people seem to be more interested in becoming influencers than educated professionals. Politics at every level is more challenging than I've known it in my lifetime. Challenges around funding, priorities, and even political challenges to the curriculums that you teach. If we don't want to graduate people into poverty, and we truly are motivated and galvanized by the purpose of preparing people for meaningful careers and compensate them well so that they can have fruitful and productive lives, so that they can raise their families and contribute in their communities, how do we go about it in an environment and a climate like this that challenges us in ways we've never been challenged before? Everywhere we turn, we read about labor shortages. We experience it in our own cities and towns and here in North Carolina. Achieving family-sustaining wages, I want to tell you, depends on the vitality of our community colleges. I don't want you to underestimate the importance of your role. And Dr. Wood has given an example of how they made this happen in Wisconsin, of your influence on how wages are changed at a community level. You can influence that in partnership with businesses in your community. I believe that it does start with courage, paired very closely with another C word, community. It takes courage to admit that what we're doing right now may not be exactly what we need to do moving forward. It takes courage to admit that maybe we don't have it all figured out yet. It takes courage to recognize that some of our long-held practices are no longer serving the students and the communities as they need to in a world that's changing as it is. Is my college aligning programs with high-wage and high-growth industries? Are we ensuring that every credential and degree we offer leads to a living wage, not just a job, but a pathway to economic mobility? Are we asking ourselves those questions? It takes courage to try some new approaches. Yes, to even take some risks, not knowing whether all of it will be successful or not. Chances are it won't, but we've got to have the courage to try. Because a position of no change almost guarantees that we will fail. You know, it takes courage to challenge the status quo when comfort may be what some of your colleagues would prefer, or maybe you would prefer. It takes courage when those in your classrooms and administrative suites would rather just not to make too many waves. And some of the change may need to begin with changes in some of those seat holders. Yes, courage is needed. And that courage is needed at a community level because that's where the work gets done. What we do here in Raleigh matters around policy, decision-making on a number of levels, but at the end of the day, whether it is public work or private work, it happens on the ground at the community level. And so it takes courage to make change there. I agree with Dr. Wood that the work of student success must include leaders in your colleges stepping off the campus to go where the jobs are and to learn in the workplace what the needs are today and, very importantly, what the needs are going to be for tomorrow. The days when you as a college administrator can go to area businesses and say, here are the courses we offer, are over. The programs you offer, the degrees you confer, the credentials you provide must be driven by those who are looking for the credentialed and degreed potential employees. This isn't about how many of each type you graduate. This is about how many you graduate and are gainfully and happily employed. You can't begin to envision that without a collaborative and partnership approach to doing the work. Have you spent time with these employers? Do you know them? Have you called on them for anything beyond fundraising? Have you spent time in their workplaces and know what the nature of the work is, what the work environment and the culture is like? It takes courage to go beyond the grounds of your campus and to place yourself in community to understand what the needs are and where they are. It will also take courage to make the tough decisions that inevitably have to be made to do the better thing. Secondly, Dr. Wood said that it takes humility to lead in the midst of change. Leaders with humility aren't doormats or pushovers by any means. They're simply people who have a call to lead and understand that service is the driver of their purpose. If service, care, and compassion are not the things that define the character of your leadership, you just might be in the wrong profession. Leading and guiding adult students, it isn't for the faint of heart or the weary of work. I think you all would agree. If being the president or being the vice president is your motivation, I would suggest you're destined to fail. If purpose is not defined by your desire to see students achieve and grow and be at their best, you're destined for failure. If their success defines your personal success, I think you'll be more likely to achieve the goal. And then there's urgency. Urgency is needed. It's kind of scary to say in my 50-year career, but that's what it is. I don't know that I have ever felt the sense of urgency I feel today. Maybe part of it is just growing older and realize I'm the one running out of time. I don't know. But I feel a sense of urgency, and in Western North Carolina, we really don't have a choice. You see, we need to refresh, we need to renew, we need to revitalize our way of going about the work of educating and equipping students in our communities. We had the challenges before Hurricane Helene in Western North Carolina because the economic decline started in Western North Carolina in the 80s, when textiles began to go offshore, when furniture began to move offshore. And then you add the recession of 2008, 2009, then you have COVID, and then just by chance, we have the most impactful hurricane in the state's history come to Western North Carolina. Who even knew that was possible? Well, we've got a challenge, and urgency is critical. I shared with Dr. Wood earlier, and I don't know who said this quote, but never waste a good crisis, and we're not going to waste this one. My life work has been as a change agent. It has been coming into hard spaces to create the change that needs to take place for a business to continue to be successful, for a community to continue to be successful at a state level, for our economic development efforts to have a new charge and to be successful. And I agree with what Dr. Herron says, that the first place we have to start is by meeting people where they are and then helping them go as far as they can go, and that's what I'm doing in Western North Carolina. So we've started by looking at kind of the core economic realities, looking at healthcare, looking at infrastructure, looking at economic development, looking at arts, tourism, and culture, the greatest driver of economic growth in our region, looking at agriculture, which is still the greatest economic product in our state, looking at the natural resources that bring folks west, and also, very importantly, looking at education and workforce development. So from the beginning of this work, with the support of the John M. Belk Endowment, we've been exploring how we create the education and economic development, the workforce development system that will provide the workforce we need as we rebound out of what for us has been a very long and protracted period of economic decline. Our work is still in progress, but I can tell you that we're taking on the challenges that Dr. Wood has identified today, engaging industry in the process of design and creation of programs, looking hard at credentialing, looking hard at innovative job site learning that might be different than we've done it before and in different ways than we have done it before, creative acknowledgement of work experience and skills that people have gotten in previous work experience and now need to make a change because those jobs no longer exist, or they're determined to get into jobs that will allow them a living wage. With humility, we've got to listen and learn from these business partners and community leaders, and then implement. Dr. Naomi Albanese was the dean of the School of Consumer Sciences when I was an undergraduate student at the University of North Carolina at Greensboro. And I had a work study in her office my last 2 years, and sometimes that meant making copies, and sometimes, fortunately for me, it meant driving Dr. Albanese to her board meetings. She was on the board of Duke Power, which was unheard of in the 1970s by women, and Johnson & Johnson. I mean, she was a ceiling breaker, and she was a woman at about 5 foot tall, and she was powerful. So I took advantage of these drives to her board meetings, and I would ask her questions, things. It was a great opportunity to learn. So one day I said, Dr. Albanese, I'm just really interested. If you were to start all over again, what would you do? What would you do differently? And I thought, well, you know, maybe she would have traveled the world more, or maybe she would have married. She was single, maybe she would have had children. And she looked at me and very quickly said, I would have learned to type. That was not the answer I was expecting. She said, Sharon, I was so determined not to be a secretary, which is what was one of my primary choices in my time, that I absolutely stayed away from the typing course like the plague. She said it was a very short-sighted decision. The world is going to be run by computers, and I can't type a lick. Well, I sometimes wonder, in our children's and perhaps our quest to avoid the jobs of the past, like manufacturing or farming, are we missing the chance to help them see that both lines of work for the future look a whole lot more like their video games than they do their daddy's 10 to 12-hour long days of labor? What are we showing them today about what manufacturing looks like in a new economy? What are we showing them today about what agriculture looks like in a new economy? Yes, they do include a lot of hard work, but the innovation, the research, the opportunity in those fields don't look much at all like they did for their parents and their grandparents. It's something we've got to think about. You've been given two perspectives in the handouts you've been given today with resources on market data and good wage-paying jobs. I challenge you to take that back to your colleges and pair that information that you find there and research from there against the kind of curriculum you have in your local community colleges. What do we need to shift to better prepare folks for the jobs of the future that pay at the wage that gives them a sustainable future? We'll work to define our vision in the West for the workforce of the future and ensure that everyone along the food chain knows the vision, understands it, from our community, our teachers, our administrators, our elected officials. Do they really know what you're trying to do in your community college? Our parents, and yes, our students. They need to know and feel their success is our highest priority. We need to understand the needs of our community from the community's point of view, not overlooking the vast need we have for service workers of all type. It's almost some days overwhelming, whether that be in healthcare, emergency services, teaching, and social work. We're asking ourselves in the West if, as a group of community colleges, our goal was to ensure that every healthcare location in the state had the workforce they need to serve the people in our communities, both rural and urban, what would we do differently to make that happen? For communities to thrive, the basic needs of services must be met, yet our enrollment in these programs is falling below the need every single year. Skilled trades like electricians, plumbers, welders, carpenters are yet another need in our communities. And these are perfect opportunities to engage young people at earlier ages so that they can understand what the opportunities are. We will work with policy at the local, state, and federal level to ensure that policies align and the outcomes are measured the same. We get motivated by different measures, right? Let's get in the same boat. If we really want to change things long term, just not programmatically, we all need to be in the same boat and speaking the same language and measuring the same economic outcomes. And we're going to have to turn loose some of our pride, and yes, rustle up some humility to admit that how we've been organized, how we've been funded, how we have thought about the processes and systems in the past may not be what is necessary to carry us into the future. And once we've identified the problems, we don't need to ponder them long. We need to act on them. And one additional point, which Dr. Wood did not address, but I think he would agree with me, we will engage our children in elementary and middle school years with exposure to what our region offers in terms of employment and careers and opportunity, with hopes that many of them will see the future they don't see right now, right here in North Carolina. It's particularly important that young men, before they are teenagers, be engaged in seeing the positive possibilities for their lives before they find faster ways to fortune that lead them nowhere. Across the education continuum, boys consistently fall behind academically. They are less likely than girls to read proficiently in elementary school, less likely to graduate from high school, and less likely to pursue a college degree. We could spend the whole morning on that topic. Don't ignore it when you go back to your colleges. A recent CBS Sunday Morning story told of a fellow named Andrew Johnson, who is Toro, the mascot for the Houston Texans. It was a great story. Go back and look for it. He had just been named to the National Mascot Hall of Fame. When asked how he decided to pursue the career, you know what he said? I made the decision in the 5th grade. The 5th grade. Note that. It wasn't when he got to the community college. It was in the 5th grade. When the Kansas City Wolf came to my classroom, and they have a clip of this, somebody had videotaped it, and he was asked to put the uniform on. That day, he said, I decided I was going to be a mascot. Be it a lineman, an electrician, a manufacturing technologist, a nurse, a pastor, an educator, it starts early. The influence. We've got to expose our children earlier, and it ought to be in tandem with our community colleges and the education leadership of our community. In a world where answers come instantly, and AI can actually provide sometimes better answers than we can. In a world where creative outdoor play has been replaced by video games, and isolation is a way of life for so many of our children, not just an occasional experience. Maybe all of this transformation starts by helping children dream again about a future where work is challenging and yet satisfying and rewarding, where learning is fun and the effort is rewarded. You think it's possible? I do. Governor Jim Martin, who is a mentor and friend, used to tell the story about a pastor in Western North Carolina that rode a circuit of churches. We're back to that now. Lots of little churches and not many members. And so he would go to a different church every Sunday, and he did a circuit around 3 different churches. One of the churches had closed, and so he was introduced to a new church in his circuit. So he took his son with him, and this Sunday morning they go to this new country church, pulled up in the driveway, and when they walked into the back of the church at the vestibule, there was a long table with old flowers. You've seen it. And there was a box on the table, and the box on the top said, "Poor box." And so the father, wanting to set a good example for his son, took out all the money he had in his coat pocket, 50 cents, 2 quarters, and dropped them into the poor box. Well, they went on in and had the service, and it was a good service, and folks were responsive, and the pastor felt good about it. And the chairman of the deacons met him at the back of the church, and he said, "Pastor, we're so glad you came. We'll look forward to seeing you on the 3rd Sunday of every month, and each time you come, we're going to give you a little token of our appreciation for coming." And he went over to the poor box, and he pulled out all the money that was in it. You know what it was, 2 quarters, 50 cents. Handed it to the pastor and said, "We sure do appreciate you coming." Well, the pastor and his son got in their car, and they were a little ways down the road, and the little boy looked at his daddy and said, "You know, Daddy, I guess you had gotten a whole lot more out if you'd put a whole lot more in." Well, folks, it's time to pull out all the stops. Challenge our assumptions, craft new ways forward, ask more questions, be willing to identify the problem and then act on it. What have we got to lose? I suggest an entire generation if we don't. You and your college can innovate with courage, humility, and with urgency. Thank you, Dr. Wood, for challenging us to do it.
Let me disclaim the paternity. I was a midwife, not the papa. It was not my idea alone.
Amazingly quick setup. Got your attention, didn't I? I feel the need to come a little bit closer to my friends. Sorry for moving. There. Is that better? Well, first of all, thank you, Sharon. I appreciate your your remarks, because they really came from the heart as well, as you acknowledged, Jason, for doing that. And for years of service for government, in industry, in the community, really touched my heart. And for breaking some ceilings along the way. Thank you. I'm really excited about this conversation, and particularly want to frame it because we have two individuals from two very different perspectives, and yet they come with the same truth, that the community college sits at the center of economic mobility, sits at the center of regional vitality, sits at the center of the community. So we have the opportunity now to engage in some conversation. And I can only imagine both of them have so much more to share. So we will limit our questions for the sake of time, unless, of course, you'd like to spend the afternoon with us. So I'm going to first start with you, Sharon. 10 years ago, as North Carolina Secretary of Commerce, you focused on the need to aggressively recruit businesses to North Carolina. And recently, the state has had a massive uptick in businesses who are taking root here. So from your perspective, what needs to happen to build the workforce that will support these businesses, and specifically how the community colleges can align in that effort? And I think your work in North Carolina is just beginning.
It is, in so many ways. But I think I'd just recap what I said in my comments, that it's about understanding the business opportunities in your community, and you can't do that from a distance. It's about building relationships, and it's not just rubbing elbows at the Chamber of Commerce events. It's sitting down with them in their places of business and asking the questions, how do we best serve you? I was recently in a meeting here in the state on the rural economy, and there was a very frustrated employer there. And what I came to understand is that he really didn't know what our community colleges offer. And he was a significant employer in that community, and it was like, let's get the two of you together here. And so we started at the back of the room. I want you to introduce yourselves. And I think he had met some people within the faculty and had some context, but had no context for what that college could do for him. But most importantly, I don't think the college understood what he needed. And that happens in conversation. It's not a one-time interview, it's a relationship. And so I would say that's the first thing at our colleges and in every community. And then sharing what we learn. I think you do have some great resources of data and the information that's provided in the handouts you've received today. And I really encourage you to spend some time understanding what it is. But don't just understand the data. Build the relationships, because I think that's where we'll see the shift coming. I think one of the things I observed as secretary was that when a company was talking to us about coming to North Carolina, that was just a starting conversation. And then after they decided they were coming, that was just an announcement. The hard work happens once they've announced they're going to be there. You've transcribed something that you can offer to them, but the real power and the value of that is in what you design together from that point forward. And it doesn't happen quickly, so we have to work with urgency. If you let the natural timing happen, it's too slow. You got to speed it up. The first calls on Toyota happened when I was Secretary of Commerce 13 years ago. And I remember in that conversation talking about our community colleges. I talked about workforce development, talked about what the opportunity was in our state. That was as important to them as the tax incentives, no joke. The human capital of their investment is just as important to them as the financial capital, because you can't have one without the other. So get in there and get to know the folks, the employers in your community. They're hurting, just like you're struggling in some ways, they are doing the same. You can commiserate together, be honest about the challenges you face. You'll figure out the solutions together.
Thank you. Jason, you've had the opportunity to focus your efforts very clearly on a rural community, and now you've since moved to a much larger institution. Thinking of the things Sharon has said, thinking of your experiences, how do you continue this practical work at a brand new, different kind of institution?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest differences I found between a small rural college and at least the small rural college I most recently served in, and a large urban college, is the gap between the poorest students and our most well-to-do students is much larger. In a small rural college, we didn't have quite that gap. And with that, there's an opportunity to engage in either instance with local employers. I think working at and I'm only 3 months into my job at a large urban institution, but there has been a wealth of resources that are unaligned across the whole urban ecosystem that we're working in. That power to convene hasn't been used by design necessarily, and then sustained after that initial convening. And one thing I appreciate about our current president is that power of convening is reoccurring. Not only has he gone to every college and university in the state of Utah in his 1 year on the job, but he's now circling back in year 2 and doing it again. And that those conversations by design are, what are we planning to do? And then when he comes back, it's what did we do? And then committing to the next step of actions. So I think whether you're in rural or urban, yep, that's the two. I almost did what you did. Whether you're in rural or urban, that power to convene needs to be on a cadence that is regular and built on what is it that we did and where are we going, and then check back on the progress that's made.
I'm not sure how many of you have noticed that call to action that both have said, and Sharon, from your remarks, we cannot admire the problem. I think we do a lot of that, so I really appreciate that call to action. And action also means that I have a lot of questions we're not going to get to, so I'm going to move forward to a couple in the audience. And I know Cecilia Holden is one of those individuals that had a question, so I'm going to call on Cecilia.
Thank you, and thank you for those inspiring, heartfelt words, Secretary Decker, and also Dr. Wood. Very, very heartfelt. I would love to hear your sermon. Can we get an amen for Secretary Decker? The state of North Carolina has an educational attainment goal, and that is to have 2 million individuals ages 25 to 44 holding either an industry-valued credential or a college degree by the year 2030. My future NC was given the torch to carry to ensure that we reach the goal, but we know that it's a state-led organization, and ultimately, as Secretary Decker said, it has to happen at the grassroots level and within our communities. There is wonderful work underway at the state level. We've got Propel NC that's a great effort moving forward, lots of great work at the local level, but what recommended strategies or the number one strategy would you believe would help to make sure that the real impact does happen, that students end up completing what they start, that leads to good jobs and employers getting a skilled workforce?
Either way.
That's a good question. 2 million by when? 2030? Yeah, 2 million by 2030. I love the ambition behind that goal, the specificity, the short time frame presents a unique challenge. I think, is Josh Weiner here? I think if you accomplish that, you could petition Aspen that North Carolina wins the Aspen Prize rather than an individual college. Where I would start is in the junior high and early high school. And I think connecting employers in that outreach starting early would make a huge difference. How do you design the education system early on so that it incorporates the workforce by design and leads to the first credential as an inevitable part of that journey? They're going to graduate from high school. I think North Carolina has a very high school graduation rate. Partnering closer sooner will allow students to get that first credential on the track, whether that's a short-term certificate recognized in workforce or credits towards a a transfer degree. I don't think that matters nearly as much as the students having that opportunity early on, especially if it's connected to the workforce. And what I mean by being connected to the workforce, it's not the career day where you talk about what career you would have. It's much more real learning where, for example, in our construction trades program at Salt Lake Tech, Salt Lake Community College, we're looking at how we can bring construction trades robots into freshman and sophomore classes so that students can see that there is a high-tech part of trades. And that doesn't matter if it's trades or manufacturing or healthcare. Students being able to see that the opportunity to influence, referenced earlier being an influencer, the opportunity to influence and earn a living is available in the traditional career paths if they're connected close to education. So that would be my first suggestion, is to start early, and then also mirror that model in early education of junior high, high school, with your current employees who don't have the academic credentials. And I would be much more strategic about how we use credit for prior learning as a recruitment tool up front in the workforce. And if that's a partnership with employers, they're going to see their own employees as their future workforce rather than a layoff strategy.
I say amen and amen. Great answer. I'd add a couple of things to it, but I think at the core we're in the very same place about this. It has to start earlier. But I'd add two little ancillary things. One of the things Dr. Wood said to me as we were preparing to come out, I was asking some of his story, and he said he was hired as a recruiter at a community college. That was his first journey into a community college, and I thought, I don't think I've ever known a recruiter at our community college, and I loved that idea. That, you know, whether it's at the college events, but more importantly, relationally being present in the schools to be talking about, that's the perfect kind of role to be in it and learning it together. And I couldn't agree more. It's more about experiential kinds of things. Note in the story I told about the mascot, he put it on. And I think that says a lot about, he put the suit on, says a lot about the experience, whatever that experience is, and being hands-on in it. I know a lot of my early career choices were made in high school classrooms that were hands-on. You know, it was that teacher that was passionate about it, and for us to expose children to career opportunities in that regard. One thing I think we need to take note on, and I don't have all the data in my head, but recent data about how few children from 15, 16, 17 are working, getting jobs. Well, I didn't know that was an option when I was 15. You went to work when you got your work, could get a work permit, you got a job. And a lot of our children are not expected to do that. And so we have to give them the exposure to the work experience. If their parents are not going to expect them to do that, then let's at least expose them to what they are so that they desire to go get those jobs at earlier years and get those credentialed opportunities and work experience that can be used towards their credentialing. So there's a cultural shift that needs to take place that really has to happen at a community level. And I'm sorry, but we've got to communicate with them in social media and all of these other forms. They're not going to pick up brochures and read them. So how do we begin to communicate in a language and in a culture where we've got to go about them in different ways? And we've got some hard work to do about fundamentally changing that. There's a cultural shift. One of the greatest challenges I faced in the Tryon project was a cultural one, because I live and have lived the last 25 years in a manufacturing community. I grew up in Gastonia. It was a manufacturing culture. I mean, our way of life was defined by the manufacturing environment in the mill that we all lived near and our parents worked for. And that was the same in Rutherford County. And so when I was trying to recruit employees, a variety of ages and experience, we would take people with no experience. We had a partnership with Isothermal Community College to do some culinary training, customer service training, hospitality training, on site with us in partnership, was getting parents to be supportive of children, seeing that there was a career opportunity in hospitality. They didn't even know that existed. And so they would say, don't waste your time there. You know, go to Spartanburg and work in BMW. That's great if you have a desire to be in manufacturing, fantastic employer. But there was an opportunity here with comparable wage. And so it was a cultural one to say, here's the opportunity. So the experiential opportunity not only is to be obvious to the students, but as I said, to the parents as well. So there's a lot of education to be done.
How about one more question from our audience? And I think Noemi's handing the mic to J.B. Buxton, president of Durham Tech Community College.
Good morning, Dr. Wood. Ms. Decker, thank you very much for your personal commitments to the work that we all do. Thanks for affirming the impact we have on individuals' economic opportunity and also our community's vitality, and also challenging us to really focus on economic mobility and what happens not just with us, but beyond us. I think the thing that was extraordinary, Dr. Wood, about what you talked about in talking about not graduating students into poverty was not just focusing on what your institution was doing with your programs of study or your sports, but how you convinced an employer not just that you would give them the worker they needed, but they needed to raise the wage. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of us avoid those low-wage employers and don't offer programs to not graduate into poverty. You convinced an employer to make sure they weren't offering poverty-level wages in return for the talent that you were giving them. I'd love to give us all a few practical tips about that work and that relationship you built. And then Secretary Decker, I would love to hear your thoughts from that employer side, what I think is just an extraordinary story.
Yeah, thank you. The first few conversations we have didn't go very well. When you walk in and they're expecting an ask for materials or supplies and or a donation for scholarships, and you ask them to raise the wages for their employees, it caught people off guard, and it disrupted their business model, and it was very uncomfortable. And they communicated their discomfort with me, which made me uncomfortable. It also made me realize that if we were going to have any integrity and sincerity in making that ask, that we had to make those changes first and lead by example. And I alluded to, or I spoke a little bit about it, but when we changed the wages for our custodians and we had a child care center, our child care workers, our cooks in the kitchen, front desk help, IT entry-level support, when we bumped those salaries up, we had to make difficult choices across the rest of our college. And we learned from that. And then when I would walk into another business and say, here are some of the lessons we've learned and how we've done it and what we had to stop doing, we were also able to change the invitation and say, if you tell us what would make our graduates more profitable for you, will you reinvest some of those earnings in their wages? I have not been turned down yet. The biggest hurdle to that invitation then became, how fast can you change the competencies you're delivering? And that was then back on us to overcome some of our academic traditions in the 18-month curriculum process to 3 months. And that the 3 legs of the stool, speed, quality, and cost, we decided that we could give up and do things faster and keep quality, but we needed to pay for that. And that's where the employers actually were able to do that 3rd leg for us. And so I talked about agriculture. We had some of our implement providers give us the first 200 hours on a state-of-the-art combine. And so $1 million machine that our students get to drive before anybody else. And there's a real learning experience when they drop a $300,000 combine head into the ditch. But I think to answer your question directly, we learned all kinds of things from having those conversations that narrowed down to if our graduates can be more profitable for you, what skills would they have? How fast can we deliver those? And will you be our partners in making the changes necessary so that they're learning on the equipment they're going to need from the specialists they need? And that led to all kinds of really exciting opportunities. Does that get at your question? I'll just go back to the uncomfortable conversations that started, helped us learn that we had to do it first, and then focusing on what we could deliver with our students.
I don't think I know any business owner who's not willing to pay more for better qualified teammates. And so if we're providing the credentials they need, the experience they need, I think they'll agree to raise compensation, as you've shared. And I think it's so important, and you've said it so well, getting in on the front end of that conversation with them to say, what is it that you need? And when we can provide this, will you raise the rates for their entry into your company? I really don't know companies that wouldn't agree to do that. Because the challenge today is not necessarily not being able to find people, it's qualified folks who are willing to get in and get the job done. And the more people that have that experience while they're in school, so they get into a job and know kind of what to expect, is a much better way to hire and keep them engaged and employed. I have talked with one company that we recruited to North Carolina when I was here, and they have worked with the community college to say, yes, we'll increase the wage for those who come in with these credentials, and then let's make some agreement for like year 1, year 2. So not only was it based on performance of that individual in the company, but also their continued education in the process of getting them to the higher and higher level of performance. I think that we don't want to lose. It also keeps you connected to that student when there's an accountability for continued training and development or continued on into a 4-year kind of experience. But looking at those kind of opportunities that keep you tied together and supporting each other with the business, I think is part of a strategy to pursue.
One other thing that came to my mind, when we started Unlocking Opportunities, the very first conference we went to, one of our tasks was to map all of our programs to their postgraduate wages. We did that in those couple of days, and then we went back to campus and put it up on a PowerPoint in front of the whole college. High, medium, and low wage programs. Wow. Faculty didn't like being associated with a low wage program, and we heard all kinds of reasons why they didn't like it. We took that same presentation out to every single advisory committee, and when you walk into an advisory committee and all of their folks are sitting there from competing industries, they're still collaborative partners on your advisory committee, but you put up what graduates are being paid and label it as a low wage. There was some pride across the different industries, and then they started talking, well, what are you paying? Because if this is what they're averaging, and before that there wasn't a space for that to happen, and it was more competitive across industries in a small rural area. It was much more competitive and a secret. So that data allowed for much better conversations and some collaborative. I remember one of our healthcare tracks, all of the HR folks were on it. I can't remember which program it was, but the HR people were there. And they all committed going back to their hospitals and telling the CEOs, we need to raise the salaries. And so I think the power in convening combined with the data allows some of those virtues of competition to take over, and it creates a space for that competition to be elevated to collaboration. There's a limited pipeline in our rural communities. So being able to invest in the talent growth is often best done locally. And so that was another thing that I could talk all day about, some of the lessons we learned from being more open with our rating and ranking of our programs. Are we done?
I like that idea, Jason, that we could talk all day. As a distinguished professor, it is my honor and privilege to be able to talk all day. And of course, you would all not appreciate that. Before I move to some concluding remarks, I just want us to give a debt of gratitude to both of you for sharing your ideas, your wisdom, and the idea that all that you talked about is about courage. And so if you can join me in giving them a hand. So Sharon, you brought depth and clarity to what you talked about. And your stories and your experiences demonstrated that it does take community and courage to do hard things. And I know we have all done hard things. Your leadership in this space offers inspiration. And Jason, I'd want to extend again a thank you for being here, for challenging us that it's more than access and completion, to ensure that our students leave our community colleges with not just credentials, but with confidence, purpose, and a clear path to economic mobility. And I also believe that it took you courage to get up here to do what you did today. Thank you. So for our attendees near and far, thank you for being with us today and for your ongoing commitment to our shared mission. I hope that you take what you've learned, carry it forward, think critically, and transform our ideas into action. To our partners at the John M. Belk Endowment, thank you for your constant support and commitment, dedication to advancing student success and opportunity across our state. And finally, I would like to recognize and give a hand of applause to our Belk Center team for bringing this event together today. The lecture is led by a planning committee, including Noemi Ramirez, Monica Clark, and the entire team who've gone above and beyond to assure every detail of this lecture was thoughtful and impactful. So I ask you to give a warm hand of applause. It wouldn't be a Dallas Herring lecture if I didn't include something at the end about Dallas Herring. And I want to remind us all to continue to drawing from his vision to remain steadfast in our purpose, to innovate with intention, to never lose sight of students whose futures depend on our collective efforts. Together, we can ensure that the doors of opportunity, as he said, remain open to all. So thank you for joining us today from near and far, and we will see you next November for the 2026 lecture, and would love for you here in the audience to join with us in a reception out back. So thank you again, everyone.